potatoes, prayers, fast and cleanse till the vision is clear. That's good.
Alright.
I'll figure it out. Take it easy, my brother. We in turbulent time.
Alright, let's try it out.
Take it easy, my brother. Take it easy.
Take it easy. You know, when we see the elders and the young ones, we say, take it easy. We tell them, take it easy. They say, take it easy.
Check it out. Yeah.
So today's workout was really good. As always, it feels great to get the body moving and keep taking steps to improve your health. I'm on the way home now to jump into our school night routine. In between the cooking, homework, and after-school activities, my wife and I work together to get everything done as best we can. Once I get in the house, inshallah, the plan is to make our prayers, and after that, I intend to help our sons finish their math and ELA homework while my wife finishes dinner. After the children get to bed, I try to get some QuestUp game development in. For our QuestUp mobile app, one of the ways I've been able to keep the project moving is to leverage the nights, because I work during the day. So I'm going to try to work on the next major feature being the offensive mechanics of the game. I also have some app compliance requirements to address for the Google Play version of the app that I was alerted to by Google about a week ago. So if I can manage to pull one of the children into help, that would be a plus to keep the project moving as a family, but if not, it's all good. Aside from that, I'm going to be working on a khutbah, which is the lecture that starts the Friday prayer service we as Muslims attend on a weekly basis. So I'm going to be getting ready for a lecture with one of our masjids in Long Island that I'm trying to support on a monthly basis to balance out my family schedule. So we're going to try to make that happen and work on this lecture that I hope is inspiring and helpful to the community in addition to myself and my family. On top of the lecture, I plan to be working on some leak code. For those that might not be aware, a lot of the big tech companies are using leak code to evaluate their candidates for coding positions. This is something that's heavily being used by the big name companies like Google, Meta, and Microsoft, as well as a lot of other tech and finance companies in the industry. So we're going to be getting into some leak code, which is good for me as a developer because it helps keep my skills fresh, as well as exposing this to you all. Many of you might be interested in a coding career, have children, or people you know that might want to get into software development, especially as AI continues to expand across many of our industries. So we're going to be grinding some leak code this week. Basically tricky coding questions that are kind of like brain teasers, but it's just something you have to do to make it in this industry nowadays since 2021 and beyond. You really have to grind leak code whether you have a degree or not to sharpen up your development skills that can get you a high-paying position. So we're going to try to tackle some of those questions and expose ourselves to this framework that these companies are using that I would compare to a coding SAT exam or the Common Core for elementary schools that many of us as parents or guardians struggle to get our kids through, even with degrees. So that's the nightly plan for the week. We're going to try to make these things happen by God's permission, and whatever we don't get done, it just carries over.
تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا وهو العزيز الغفور هو الذي خلق 7 سماوات طباقا ما ترى في خلق الرحمن من تفاوت فارجع البصر هل ترى من فطور الله أكبر.
Allahu Akbar.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Okay. All right. So, what problem do we have now?
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
6. Okay.
Plus
Plus.
1.
Which gives us how many?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. On the number
4. Okay. So draw an excellent. Okay, and they show you how to do that here.
And then draw a circle.
So let's look at this one here. To 5. So what we're saying is, if this is a proportional relationship, if you were to multiply 12 times over, that should give you, well, if it's a proportional relationship. That's what you need to find out. So 12, can you delete all of that? For our QuestUp mobile Skyrunner action game that is currently available in the App Store and Google Play, one of the recommendations we got from our players after launching was to add an offensive mechanic to the game. Our team thought this was a great idea for our next series of enhancements to the game and spent some time researching how we could develop this feature. To get started, we used the Unity Asset Store, since our game was built with the Unity engine, to get the game assets we needed to build out this feature. The Unity Asset Store has many free and paid asset packages to help you save time while building your game. Our plan was to start this feature with Code Stealth, our ninja character, by giving him a sword to be able to strike any moving plasma enemy orb in the game. We started with a free swords asset package from the Unity Asset Store, developed by a company called Perpetual Diversion. We also purchased 2 asset packages created from Lana Studios, a developer that makes special effects like blasts and tornadoes using VFX, that are computer-created visual effects. After striking the enemy with the sword, we wanted to create a blast effect to show that the enemy was being destroyed. We also had an idea to add swirling tornadoes to some of the flying orbs, to add a new and exciting look to our game that is based in the sky. Lastly, we downloaded a paid asset package that uses artificial intelligence to create skyboxes. Skyboxes are the environments or backgrounds that game scenes are played in. We wanted to use natural language to describe the skyboxes we wanted for our levels, and for AI to create something that looks amazing. This asset was created by a company called Kyrox Apps. We selected these assets by looking at their samples and reading reviews. For our Unity game engine, the AI tool did a great job creating the space background with starships and planets that we asked the AI to create. We also used a katana sword from the swords package and simply attached it to the right hand of our character's armature. After that, we added animations to the character to strike upon the press of a sword button we added to the screen. The animations came from a locomotion package we bought a while ago, made by a company called Clayzy. After that, we spent a few days instrumenting the game's C# code with our players' box colliders, so if an enemy came into contact with the player's box collider while the player was in the act of striking, the code should make a poof effect and destroy the enemy. The tornadoes we added to the flying enemies look really cool, and all of the assets we purchased work great. After about a week of implementation, we got the sword striking feature working for our character. We still have to update our scoring system to add points to the player's score for all enemies that get destroyed, and do some other things. So I would say it may take us another month in between work, school, and life until we can fully implement, test, and push this new feature to the stores. When we get to that point, God willing, we'll try to release another video. And on top of it all, building this feature is a challenge and really fun. So tonight we're going to go through Leet Code problem 1550, which is 3 consecutive odds. This is ranked easy. So they're telling us, given an integer array ARR, an array containing data, return true if there are 3 consecutive odd numbers in the array. Otherwise, return false. Okay, in example 1, and they always give us examples, they're telling us that the array called ARR has 2, 6, 4, and 1. And as we can see here, there are no 3 consecutive odds in that array. In example test case 2, they're giving us a bunch of numbers, and as we can see scanning through them, okay, we have 5, 7, and 23, which are 3 consecutive odds. So in this case, the code should return true, okay? To take a quick look at the constraints, they're telling us that, okay, the numbers of elements in the array.length, is going to be in between 1 and 1,000, okay? And each element of the array accessed by ARR of I being the element index, is going to be in between 1 and 1,000. So they're telling us the array contains positive numbers, okay? If I were to code this up in Python, what I would do inside the definition of the function that they give us, they're always giving us a function to implement, I would just create a note or a comment to say the strategy would be to loop through the array and keep count of odds. Okay, that would be the strategy. Okay, so what I would do is I would start off with a variable called odd counter, a variable in computer science being a spot of memory that can hold some data. And I would start that counter or initialize it to 0, step 1. Step 2 is I would use a for loop because I need to loop through this array one element at a time, okay, as if we were to do it manually without a computer. And I would say for every item, okay, in that array, it's called ARR, okay, I need to use what we call a conditional statement. In Python or many languages, it would be the if. So I would say if the item that I'm at modulo 2, because modulo is a way of saying a remainder. So in math, if we have a number divided by 2 and it gives us a 0 as the remainder, that means it's even. If it gives us a remainder that's not 0, that means it's odd. So I'm going to say if that item that I'm at, modulo 2, equals to 0, okay, that's my check. I'm going to say the number is even, and that way I'm going to reset my counter to 0. So I'm going to make sure that that number of odds that I'm tracking is set back to 0. Else, okay, my odd counter, which means in this case I've actually hit an odd, because if it ain't even, it's got to be odd. So if it's odd, I'm going to set that counter to plus equals 1, which is a way of saying I'm going to increment the counter by 1. So in this case here, if I'm at this array 2, okay, we know 2 is even, so that means my counter stays at 0. 6 is even, that means my counter stays at 0. 4 is even, that means my counter stays at 0. 1 is odd, else, which means I'm going to bump my counter from 0 to 1. And because I haven't hit 3 odds, I'm going to return false. So in this case here, because I've actually hit an odd, what I'm also going to do is I'm going to check. And I'm going to say if that counter value is equal to 3, which means have I hit 3 consecutive odds? And if that's the case, I'm going to return true, which means we've succeeded, okay? And there's no need to continue to keep going through the array. If I go through all of this looping and I haven't hit that counter at 3, then I'm just basically going to be clever and say, okay, return false, because there's no more work to do. Okay, so now that I have the code in Python, I'm properly indented, which looks good. Okay, let me run it and see if it works. Okay, if I run this code, okay, we can see that our solution is accepted, which means our code works for both of these test cases. The first array here, which is test case 1, and the second array, which is test case 2. Okay, the last thing I'm going to do with LeetCode is I'm going to submit our response to run against a large amount of test cases to make sure there's not a case for which our solution just doesn't work. So with LeetCode, what we can do is we can go up here and we can click that submit button. And now this test case is going to run against a whole lot of test cases, and it tells us our solution is accepted. Okay, they're saying it beats 100%, which is pretty good, and our complexity is pretty good. The complexity, when they talk about that, is basically a way of analyzing your code, because like in math or in life, there are many ways to do things. So just to talk about complexity, in computer science, we use what's called the big O runtime, which means it's a way of saying big O for n. We like to use n in computer science, which is a way of saying every element in this array, n. What we're doing is we're going through each element one at a time, okay? So in this array, big O of n is just a way of basically saying a linear search, which means we're going through this array one element at a time, and we're doing all the work we need to do as we iterate through that element one at a time. So the runtime of this algorithm would be O of n, a linear search, which is pretty efficient. Okay, so I would just say that, we really want to keep our skills sharp, because, if we keep up with these coding skills for our computer science majors and, people that just want to get into development, whether or not you have a degree, if you can show that you can effectively solve these problems, I mean, let's face it, they're giving these students and these candidates $200,000, $300,000 a year, even more total compensation. So it's really a benefit to keep up with these skills, keep them sharp, because the money is out there. There's a lot of money to be made. And like I always say to some of my students and my children, the more of this money that you can go out there and make while this money is to be made, you can save that money and put that money to work for yourself, right? So it's definitely a benefit to, utilize these skills, because, the more you know, the more you can grow. So in the upcoming khutbah, or the lecture that I plan to do for our Friday prayer service, I am going to, inshallah, talk about the fusion of the material and the spiritual life. Something that our Imam W.D. Muhammad, may Allah grant him paradise for all he taught us, really emphasized. that, hey, it's one life. The spiritual component, praising our Lord, doing what we have to do as good servants and good people, is really one with the material things that we're trying to do. Making money, taking care of self and family, enjoying ourselves, so on and so forth. Basically, it's all one life. And the more we can show that it's one life, the easier life is going to be by Allah's permission, by God's permission. So I like to prepare the notes for what I want to say by doing a little bit every day or every other day, leading up until Friday. I have my verses from Quran, our holy book, that I want to talk about, examples from what Imam W.D. Muhammad taught us. I try to throw in some examples from my life and the things I'm aware of, as well as trying to incorporate practical examples from the lives of people around us. We have a lot of great efforts going on in our communities, like the Black American Muslim Born and Raised Movement, aka BAMBAR, Sister Tamika's tutoring program that we're working with, the masjids that are trying to answer the call to galvanize the spirit of community life. We have community organizations doing great work to help the people. So it's a lot of good stuff going on, and I just try to put all of that together, make a good presentation, put God first, and hopefully the lecture sounds like I'm saying something that we can all benefit from. So that's the plan. We just have to put together those notes and do our best.
You know what I'm saying? There's something really, really, really special and powerful about that. And we say take it easy. Tap in. Because once you tap in, you get in the flow. And once you get in the flow, then it all comes to you. You know what I'm saying? Signing off. John Medicine. Salima Rock.